A small-town mechanic fixed an old car for free, not knowing its owner would change his life. The words echoed in Jack Sullivan's mind as he wiped grease-stained hands across his faded blue coveralls. Another day ending at Sullivan's Auto Repair, the small garage that had been his father's before him and his grandfather's before that. 42 years old with permanent oil beneath his fingernails and a lifetime of fixing other people's journeys while his own remained stalled. The late afternoon sun slanted through the dusty windows, catching motes of dust that danced in the golden light. Jack's shoulders ached from a day hunched over engines, the familiar pain a companion more constant than any person in his life these days. 3 years since Diana had left, taking their daughter Emma with her to Portland. 3 years of quiet dinners alone and phone calls that grew increasingly shorter as Emma's life filled with new friends, new experiences, and a stepfather who coached her soccer team. Jack closed his worn toolbox with a metallic click that echoed through the empty garage. Maverick, his aging chocolate lab, lifted his head from his bed in the corner, eyes questioning. "Just us again tonight, old boy," Jack said, his voice rough from disuse. Most days he spoke more to engines than people. Riverdale, population 2,382, wasn't the kind of place where secrets stayed secret for long. Everyone knew Jack Sullivan as the honest mechanic who could coax life back into the most stubborn engines. They knew he closed up at 6 p.m. sharp every weekday, drank exactly 2 beers at Donnelly's Bar on Friday nights, and sat in the third pew at First Methodist on Sundays. What they didn't know was how the silence in his small house pressed against him each night like a physical weight. Jack was locking up when he noticed the car. An ancient Chevy Impala, early 60s model, once white but now a patchwork of rust and primer. It sat awkwardly at the edge of his lot, steam hissing from under the hood. Beside it stood a woman, arms wrapped around herself against the October chill. Mid-30s maybe. Dark hair pulled back, clothes that spoke of careful budgeting rather than fashion. She was staring at the car with the particular blend of desperation and resignation that Jack had seen countless times before. Something about her posture, shoulders squared despite obvious exhaustion, made Jack pause with the keys in his hand. Business hours were over. He had a frozen dinner waiting at home, the Thursday night game to watch. Having trouble? The words left his mouth before he'd fully decided to speak. The woman turned, startled. Up close, Jack noticed the shadows beneath her eyes, the slight tremble in her hands. "It just died. I was hoping to make it another 50 miles, but..." She gestured helplessly at the steaming vehicle. "Mind if I take a look?" Jack asked, already moving toward the car, pulled by a professional curiosity he couldn't quite suppress. "The shop's closed, isn't it?" She glanced at the darkened windows. "I can call a tow in the morning." "I'm the shop," Jack replied, setting his toolbox down. "Jack Sullivan. Marie Collier," she said. "I'd offer to pay you for after-hours work, but I..." She trailed off, her hand instinctively moving to the small purse slung across her body. Jack waved away her concern as he popped the hood, releasing a cloud of steam that momentarily obscured his face. The familiar scent of hot metal and coolant filled his nostrils. His hands moved automatically, checking hoses, touching the radiator cap cautiously. "Blown head gasket," he said after a few minutes of inspection. "And your timing belt's not looking too good either." Marie's face fell. "How much?" The question hung between them as Jack straightened, wiping his hands on a rag. He saw the worn suitcases in the back seat, noticed a child's drawing stuck to the dashboard. Something in her eyes, a mix of pride and quiet desperation, reminded him of himself in the months after Diana left, when keeping up appearances had seemed both impossible and absolutely necessary. "Juana said, where are you headed?" he asked instead of answering. "Millerville. My sister's there." Marie's fingers twisted together. "My daughter and I are staying with her for a while." Jack nodded, suddenly understanding. He'd seen it before, people passing through, starting over. "Where is your daughter now?" "Asleep in the back," Marie whispered, nodding toward the car where, sure enough, Jack could make out a small form curled under a blanket in the back seat. "Lily's 8. She's been so brave about everything." The evening grew cooler around them as Jack considered the car, the woman, the sleeping child. He thought about his own daughter, now 13 and growing distant in measured inches with each phone call. He thought about the empty house waiting for him. "I can fix it," he said finally. Relief washed over Marie's face. "When could you start? And what would it cost?" "I have some money saved, but..." "I'll do it now," Jack interrupted, surprising himself. "And we'll worry about the cost later." "But it's late," Marie protested weakly. Jack was already wheeling over his portable work light. "Head gaskets aren't quick fixes, but I've got nothing pressing tonight." His tone made it clear the decision was made. For the next 4 hours, Jack worked under the harsh glare of the work light. Marie had moved Lily inside the garage's small waiting area, where the child continued to sleep on a makeshift bed of jackets. Marie sat nearby, occasionally asking quiet questions about what Jack was doing, handing him tools when asked. "You know cars?" Jack asked, noting her familiarity with a socket wrench. "My dad taught me basics," she said. Before, she didn't finish, but Jack nodded. There were many ways to lose people. He knew most of them. As midnight approached, Jack tightened the final bolt and closed the hood. His back ached, his hands were filthy, but satisfaction hummed through him, the simple pleasure of solving a tangible problem. "It's done," he said, wiping sweat from his forehead with his forearm. "New head gasket, timing belt replaced. Should get you to Millerville and well beyond." Marie stood, disbelief and gratitude battling on her face. "I don't know how to thank you. What do I owe you?" Jack hesitated, looking at the sleeping child, at the careful way Marie carried herself. He thought of the parts he'd used, parts from an old Impala he'd been restoring in his spare time. Parts that had cost him, but not nearly what they would cost her. "It's taken care of," he said finally. "I can't accept that," Marie said, her voice firm despite her obvious exhaustion. "I don't take handouts." "Neither do I," Jack replied. "But sometimes we all need a break. Consider it my good deed for the month." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded once, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Thank you. We won't forget this." Jack helped them transfer the suitcases back to the car, watched as Marie gently placed her still sleeping daughter in the back seat. As the old Impala rumbled to life, the engine now running smoother than it probably had in years, Marie rolled down her window. "We'll be at my sister's in Millerville," she said. "Nancy Briggs on Elm Street. If you're ever passing through." Jack nodded, not expecting to ever take her up on the implicit invitation. People said such things in moments of gratitude. "Drive safe," he said simply, stepping back as the car pulled away, tail lights disappearing into the night. He locked up the garage for the second time that evening, whistled for Maverick, and headed home, his dinner long since cold in its plastic tray. Yet as he drove the familiar streets to his small house, Jack felt something he hadn't experienced in months. The simple warmth of having been truly useful to someone who needed it. 2 weeks passed. October gave way to November, bringing the first real cold snap of the season. Jack's days resumed their predictable rhythm. Oil changes, brake jobs, the occasional transmission rebuild. Maverick developed a limp that the vet said was just age settling into his joints. Emma called on Sunday as usual, talking for 7 minutes about school and friends before passing the phone to her mother. Jack didn't think much about Marie Collier and her daughter until the letter arrived. It was hand-addressed, the stamp slightly crooked, postmarked from Millerville. Jack opened it while eating a sandwich at his desk during a rare lunch break. Inside was a child's drawing, a crayon rendering of a car, a man with a wrench, and 2 figures labeled me and Mom. Underneath, in careful childish printing, "Thank you for fixing our car. You are a hero. Love, Lily." Also enclosed was a note from Marie, her handwriting neat and compact. "Dear Jack, Lily insisted I send you her artwork. We made it to my sister's safely thanks to your kindness. I'm still looking for a way to properly thank you. In the meantime, I hope knowing you made a difference to us brings you some happiness. Gratefully, Marie." She'd included a phone number at the bottom of the page. Jack stared at the drawing for a long time, tracing the bright crayon lines with his finger. He pinned it to the corkboard behind his desk, next to the faded photo of Emma from 3 summers ago. He did not call the number. But that night, as wind rattled the windows of his house, Jack found himself thinking about Marie. The quiet dignity in her posture, the gentle way she touched her daughter's hair. He wondered what had brought her to that moment of transition, driving an old car toward a sister's house with everything she owned packed in the back. He recognized the look of someone running towards something, or perhaps away from something else. 3 more weeks passed. Jack fixed cars, watched football, called his daughter, and tried not to notice how empty his house felt when the television was off. The drawing remained on his corkboard, bright colors catching his eye whenever he glanced up from his paperwork. The Tuesday before Thanksgiving brought early snow. Fat, wet flakes that melted on contact with the roads but accumulated in glittering mounds on lawns and rooftops. Jack was finishing an oil change when Helen Donovan, who ran the hardware store 2 blocks over, mentioned the upcoming community Thanksgiving dinner at the Methodist Church. "You should come, Jack," she said as she paid her bill. "No one should eat alone on Thanksgiving." Jack made a non-committal noise. He'd attended last year, sitting at a table with other singles and elderly couples, making small talk about weather and local politics. The turkey had been dry, the company well-meaning but not particularly engaging. That evening, as Jack defrosted chicken for dinner, his eyes kept drifting to the phone. Before he could talk himself out of it, he retrieved Marie's letter from the desk drawer, where he'd eventually placed it and dialed the number. She answered on the third ring, her voice cautious. "Marie, it's Jack Sullivan, the mechanic from Riverdale." "Jack!" Surprise and what sounded like pleasure warmed her voice. "I was just thinking about you. Lily's car hasn't made a single strange noise since you fixed it." Jack found himself smiling into the phone. "Good to hear. How are you both settling in?" "We're doing okay," Marie said, though something in her tone suggested okay might be an overstatement. "Lily started at the elementary school here. She's adjusting." "And you?" Jack asked before he could stop himself. A pause. "I'm working on it. Found a job at the hospital, administrative assistant in the ER. The hours are erratic, but the pay is steady." "That's good," Jack said, suddenly uncertain why he'd called. "I just wanted to thank Lily for the drawing. It's on my board at work." "She'll be thrilled to hear that," Marie said. "She talks about you sometimes. The nice man who fixed our car when we needed help." An impulse formed in Jack's mind. Irrational, unprecedented. "I was wondering," he said slowly, "what you and Lily are doing for Thanksgiving." Another pause, longer this time. "Nothing special. Nancy, my sister, is going to her in-laws in Chicago. We'll probably just have a quiet day here." "Would you," Jack cleared his throat, "would you both like to come to Riverdale? Twice for Thanksgiving? I know a place that puts on a good dinner." The silence that followed was so long that Jack began mentally rehearsing his apology for overstepping. "That's very kind," Marie finally said. "But I couldn't impose." "It's not an imposition," Jack interrupted. "Truth is, I'd welcome the company." The admission felt both vulnerable and liberating. "In that case," Marie said softly, "I think we'd like that very much." They arranged the details. Marie would drive over Thursday morning, Jack would meet them at his house, and they'd go to the church dinner together. After hanging up, Jack stood in his kitchen, wondering what had possessed him to invite virtual strangers to spend a holiday with him. Yet beneath the uncertainty was a flutter of something that felt suspiciously like anticipation. Thanksgiving Day dawned clear and cold, sunlight glinting off the remains of the snow. Jack woke early, cleaned his already tidy house, and put fresh towels in the guest bathroom. At precisely 11:30 a.m., a familiar white Impala pulled into his driveway. Lily was out of the car first, a whirlwind of energy in a red coat, her dark hair in two neat braids. "Mr. Sullivan? Our car is still running super good. Mom says you have magic hands." Marie emerged more slowly, embarrassment coloring her cheeks. "I said you were good at your job," she corrected, shooting Jack an apologetic smile. "Magic hands works for me," Jack said, finding himself smiling back. "Come in for a minute before we head to the dinner." Inside, Lily explored the living room with unabashed curiosity, while Marie stood somewhat awkwardly in the entryway. She dressed up, a simple blue dress that brought out the color of her eyes, a cardigan that had seen better days but was clearly her best. "Thank you for inviting us," she said quietly. "It's been a while since we had a proper Thanksgiving." Something in her tone made Jack wonder how many other things had been missing from their lives lately. "I'm glad you came," he said simply. The community dinner was in full swing when they arrived. Jack led them to an empty table, conscious of the curious glances from the regular attendees. Riverdale wasn't accustomed to seeing Jack Sullivan with company, especially female company. To Jack's surprise, the afternoon passed pleasantly. Lily charmed everyone around them, telling elaborate stories about her new school. Marie gradually relaxed, the tension in her shoulders easing as she laughed at Reverend Miller's terrible jokes. Jack found himself talking more than he had in months, answering Lily's endless questions about cars, telling stories about growing up in Riverdale that he hadn't thought about in years. "You've lived here your whole life?" Marie asked as they shared pumpkin pie. "Born and raised," Jack confirmed. "Sullivan's Auto has been here since 1952. My grandfather started it, then my dad took over, now me." "Do you love it?" Lily asked, her face serious. "Fixing cars?" Jack considered the question with more care than he might have given it from an adult. "I do," he said finally. "There's something satisfying about understanding how things work, finding what's broken and making it right again." "Will your kids run the shop someday?" Marie asked. "My daughter Emma lives with her mother in Portland," Jack said, the familiar ache accompanying the words. She's more interested in computers than carburetors. Marie nodded, understanding in her eyes. Lily's father is in Seattle. New family, new life. Dad doesn't call much. Lily added matter-of-factly, scraping the last bits of whipped cream from her plate. Jack met Marie's gaze across the table. In that moment, a current of recognition passed between them. Two people who understood loss, who were learning to rebuild around the spaces left behind. After dinner, Jack invited them back to his house for coffee. Lily fell asleep on the couch while a Thanksgiving parade replay played softly on the television. Marie sat at Jack's kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a mug of coffee. I should probably wake her soon, Marie said, glancing at her daughter. We need to get back. It's a long drive, Jack said. You could stay. I have a guest room. Marie studied him for a long moment. Why did you invite us today, Jack? The question was direct but not accusatory. Jack considered several possible answers before settling on the truth. I liked fixing your car, he said. I liked feeling useful in a way that mattered. And when I got Lily's drawing, he shrugged. I guess I wanted to see if you were both okay. Marie nodded slowly. We're getting there. She took a deep breath. My ex-husband, Lily's father, he wasn't a kind man. It took me a long time to leave. When I did, we had to leave quickly, with just what would fit in the car. She met his eyes. When you helped us that night, without asking questions, without expecting anything, it restored something I'd started to think was gone from the world. Jack felt a tightness in his chest. I'm sorry you had to go through that. Don't be, Marie said firmly. We're finding our way forward. Nancy's been good to us, but she hesitated. It's hard starting over at 37. Try 42, Jack said with a small smile. 3 years divorced and still eating frozen dinners every night. Marie laughed softly, the sound warming the kitchen. We make quite a pair, don't we? Something shifted in the air between them. A recognition, a possibility. Jack realized with sudden clarity that he didn't want them to leave yet. Stay, he said again. Just for tonight. You can head back in the morning. Marie hesitated, then nodded. Okay, thank you. Jack carried the still sleeping Lily to the guest room, while Marie brought in their overnight bags from the car. As he gently laid the child on the bed, her eyes fluttered open. Mr. Sullivan? She murmured sleepily. You can call me Jack, he said, pulling the covers over her. Jack? She repeated, already drifting back to sleep. I like your house. It feels safe. The simple statement lodged somewhere deep in Jack's chest as he quietly closed the door. Later, after Marie had gone to bed as well, Jack sat in his living room with Maverick at his feet. The house felt different. The silence replaced by the subtle sounds of other people breathing, existing within his walls. It had been so long since his home had felt truly inhabited. In the morning, Jack made pancakes, a skill he'd nearly forgotten he possessed. Lily helped, her small hands carefully dropping chocolate chips into the batter to make smiley faces. Marie watched them from the doorway, something soft and uncertain in her expression. As they ate breakfast, Lily announced, "We should come visit again." Marie started to gentle correct her daughter, but Jack spoke first. "I'd like that," he said, surprising himself with how much he meant it. When it was time for them to leave, Jack walked them to their car. The Impala started immediately, purring with a smoothness that brought professional satisfaction. "Thank you for Thanksgiving," Marie said, her hand resting lightly on his arm. "It meant a lot to both of us." "Drive safely," Jack said, echoing his words from their first meeting. "And maybe a call when you get home, just so I know you made it okay." Marie's smile reached her eyes. "I will." As he watched the Impala disappear down his street, Jack felt a curious lightness. He returned to his house, now quiet again, but somehow less empty than before. Cousin Marie did call that evening, and the next week. Soon their conversations became a regular part of Jack's routine. Marie describing her day at the hospital, Jack talking about interesting repairs at the shop. Sometimes Lily would get on the phone, peppering him with questions about engines or telling him about school projects. 2 weeks before Christmas, Marie called with news. "The hospital offered me a better position," she said, excitement vibrating in her voice. "More regular hours, better pay. It would mean we could get our own place." "That's wonderful," Jack said sincerely. There's more," Marie continued. "There's an apartment available. It's small but nice and in a good school district for Lily." "That sounds perfect," Jack said, ignoring the twinge of disappointment that their new place would be in Millerville, nearly 2 hours away. "It's not in Millerville," Marie said, as if reading his thoughts. "It's in Riverdale. 3 blocks from your garage, actually." Jack's heart stuttered. "Riverdale? But your job—" "I turned down the hospital promotion," Marie explained, and I applied for a position at Riverdale Medical Center instead. They need an office manager for their family practice. I interviewed yesterday. They offered me the job this morning. You're moving to Riverdale? Jack repeated, trying to process what she was saying. Is that okay? Marie asked, suddenly uncertain. I know we haven't known each other long, and I'm not expecting anything, but Lily loves it there, and you've become important to us, and it's more than okay. Jack interrupted, a smile spreading across his face. It's good news, really good news. Over the next 2 weeks, Jack helped Marie secure the apartment, a 2-bedroom unit above the bookstore on Main Street. He enlisted friends to find furniture, set up utilities, prepare for their arrival. The prospect of having Marie and Lily nearby filled him with a nervous energy he hadn't felt in years. They moved in the weekend before Christmas. Jack spent the day carrying boxes, assembling furniture, and watching Lily explore every corner of her new home with boundless enthusiasm. That evening, exhausted but content, the three of them sat on Marie's second-hand couch, eating pizza directly from the box. Happy? Jack asked Marie quietly while Lily arranged her stuffed animals on her new bed in the next room. Marie leaned against his shoulder, the gesture natural and unforced. Happier than I've been in a very long time, she said. On Christmas Eve, Jack invited them to his house for dinner. He bought a small tree, hung stockings for each of them, and spent hours preparing a meal that didn't come from the freezer section. When they arrived, Lily's eyes widened at the sight of the presents under the tree. Santa found us here, she exclaimed. Of course he did, Jack said solemnly. I made sure to tell him your new address. Later, after Lily had fallen asleep on the couch clutching her new stuffed otter, Marie and Jack sat together in the soft glow of the Christmas lights. I have something for you, Marie said, pulling a small wrapped package from her purse. Jack unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a silver keychain with a small wrench charm attached. Engraved on the back were the words, "Sometimes angels carry toolboxes." Lily helped pick it out, Marie said, to thank you for fixing our car that night, for changing our direction. Jack closed his hand around the keychain, emotion tightening his throat. You changed my direction too, he said finally. I was stuck in neutral for so long. Marie's hand found his in the dim light. We've all been broken in some way, she said softly. Maybe that's why you're so good at fixing things. You understand what it means to need repair. In that moment, Jack felt something shift and settle within him, the final piece of a long, incomplete puzzle clicking into place. He turned to Marie, finding in her eyes the same recognition, the same certainty. Stay, he said, echoing his words from Thanksgiving night. Not just tonight, not just in Riverdale. Stay in my life. Marie's smile bloomed slowly, like a flower turning toward unexpected sunshine. I think we're already there, she said, leaning forward to rest her forehead against his. I think we've been heading here all along. On the couch, Lily stirred in her sleep, murmuring something about Santa. Outside, snow began to fall, soft, silent flakes illuminated by the streetlights. Inside Jack Sullivan's house, for the first time in years, every room felt warm, every space felt filled, every broken piece felt on its way to being mended. The small-town mechanic who had fixed an old car for free now understood the true nature of repair. How sometimes in the process of helping others rebuild, you discover the parts of yourself that needed fixing all along. Spring came to Riverdale in a rush of green and warmth. Jack expanded Sullivan's Auto, hiring an apprentice to help with the increasing workload. Marie thrived at the medical center, her organizational skills bringing order to the once chaotic office. Lily settled into her new school, making friends and bringing home art projects that now covered not just Jack's corkboard at work, but his refrigerator at home as well. On a perfect April Saturday, Jack closed the garage early. He picked up Lily from her friend's house, stopping at the florist on the way home. Together, they arranged flowers on the dining room table, set out the good dishes Jack hadn't used in years, and waited for Marie to return from her morning shift. Do you think she'll say yes? Lily asked, adjusting the small velvet box hidden among the flower arrangement. Jack knelt to her eye level, his heart full at the sight of this child who had somehow become his in all the ways that mattered. I hope so, he said honestly. But even if she needs more time, we'll be okay. Lily considered this, then nodded with the wisdom of her 9 years. She'll say yes, she declared. She told me once that you fixed more than just our car. You fixed our broken pieces. Jack's eyes stung as he pulled her into a hug. You fixed mine too, he whispered into her hair. Both of you. When the door opened and Marie called her customary, I'm home, Jack and Lily exchanged a conspiratorial glance. As Marie entered the dining room and saw the flowers, the table, and the two people who had become her family standing side by side, her hand flew to her mouth. "What's all this?" she asked. "A celebration," Jack said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "Of second chances, of finding home in unexpected places." Lily could barely contain herself, bouncing on her toes as Marie approached the table and noticed the small box nestled among the roses. "Jack?" Marie whispered, her eyes wide. He took her hands in his, marveling at how perfectly they fit together. "When you drove into my garage that night, I was just going through the motions of living. You and Lily reminded me what it means to truly be alive." He reached for the box, opening it to reveal a simple diamond ring. "I love you, Marie. I love the family we're building. Will you marry me?" Tears spilled down Marie's cheeks as she nodded, words momentarily beyond her. Lily whooped with delight, throwing her arms around both of them. "I told you she'd say yes," she exclaimed. Later that night, after Lily had gone to bed in what had become her room at Jack's house, Marie and Jack sat on the porch swing, watching stars appear in the darkening sky. "Did you ever imagine we'd end up here?" Marie asked, her head resting on his shoulder, her engagement ring catching the porch light. Jack thought about the night he'd fixed her car, how close he'd come to simply locking up and going home to his empty house and frozen dinner. How a small decision, made almost without thinking, had altered the entire course of his life. "I think sometimes the universe puts exactly what we need in our path," he said. "We just have to be willing to stop and help when an old car breaks down." Marie laughed softly, the sound mingling with the evening breeze. "My hero and his magic hands." "I'm no hero," Jack said, pulling her closer. "Just a small-town mechanic who got lucky enough to fix the right car at the right time." "Our luck," Marie corrected gently. "All three of us." As night settled fully around them, Jack Sullivan, mechanic, father-to-be, fiancé, felt the final pieces of his life locked securely into place. The broken man who had once barely noticed the passage of days now found himself counting blessings instead of hours, measuring wealth in moments rather than money, and understanding that sometimes the most important repairs are the ones we cannot see, the careful, patient mending of hearts that have been trusted into our keeping.